80. The Sign.
We've reached the last chapter of the fourth part, and thus the last chapter of the book. You surely noticed that this part, a supplement added to the book a year after it was finished, is very different from the first three. In the first three, only seldom did any other character speak, and it was Zarathustra's one-man show, as he was struggling with the philosophical questions that troubled him, and bringing forth repressed parts of himself. The fourth part is more like a symposium, in which the other characters go through a journey of self-discovery and self-surpassing, while Zarathustra remains the same. But in the first chapter, The Honey Sacrifice, he told us that he wants to explore interesting humans to see if they can teach him something about himself. He didn't seem to learn anything until now, and acted as their guide. This is the last chapter, the last chance. Did the encounter with the higher man teach him anything about himself? Did it transform him in any way?
In the morning, however, after this night, Zarathustra jumped up from his couch, and having girded his loins, he came out of his cave glowing and strong, like a morning sun coming out of gloomy mountains. "Thou great star," spake he, as he had spoken once before, "thou deep eye of happiness, what would be all thy happiness if thou hadst not those for whom thou shinest?"
It begins like the opening of the book. Zarathustra addresses the sun and says it needs people to shine for. This is why he descended from the mountains back then, to offer his philosophy to humanity. This time, he takes another direction.
"And if they remained in their chambers whilst thou art already awake, and comest and bestowest and distributest, how would thy proud modesty upbraid for it? Well, they still sleep, these higher men, whilst I am awake. They are not my proper companions, not for them do I wait here in my mountains."
The higher men, he says, are not worthy of him being their son.
"At my work I want to be, at my day, but they understand not what are the signs of my morning. My step is not for them the awakening call. They still sleep in my cave. Their dream still drinketh at my drunken songs. The audient ear for me, the obedient ear, is yet lacking in their limbs."
They listened to him, but did not understand him. The positive transformation that they had was affected by his philosophy, but they failed to get to the bottom of it. They don't have the capacity to understand it. If they did, they would already be awake, happy to welcome another day in which their spirit can strive for greatness.
This had Zarathustra spoken to his heart when the sun arose. Then looked he inquiringly aloft, for he heard above him the sharp call of his eagle. "Well," called he upwards, "thus is it pleasing and proper to me. Mine animals are awake, for I am awake. Mine eagle is awake, and like me honoureth the sun. With eagled talons doth it grasp at the new light. Ye are my proper animals. I love you. But still do I lack my proper men."
He is on his own again, just his pride and wisdom to keep him company. They wake up the moment he does. He wants other companions, people who are like him, but he will not find them among the higher men.
Thus spake Zarathustra. Then, however, it happened that all on a sudden he became aware that he was flocked around and fluttered around, as if by innumerable birds. The whizzing of so many wings, however, and the crowding around his head was so great that he shut his eyes. And verily there came down upon him, as it were, a cloud, like a cloud of arrows which poureth upon a new enemy. But behold, here it was a cloud of love, and showered upon a new friend.
Suddenly he has other animal companions. A flock of birds descends upon him, and we are told it is a metaphor for a cloud of love. This is a transformation that the day he spent with the higher men generated in his being. By being compassionate towards them, by opening his heart to them, he allowed love to enter his heart. Love becomes part of his ethics, one of the attributes of the Superman.
"What happeneth unto me?" thought Zarathustra in his astonished heart. and slowly seated himself on the big stone which lay close to the exit from his cave. But while he grasped about with his hands, around him, above him, and below him, and repelled the tender birds, behold, there then happened to him something still stranger, for he grasped thereby unawares into a mass of thick, warm, shaggy hair. At the same time, however, there sounded before him a roar, a long, soft, lion roar.
Zarathustra tries to repel the birds. Love may be part of his new ethics, but it can't be the main part. Wisdom and pride, the traits that drive him upwards, should remain the central traits. His fight against the birds brings forth yet another new animal companion, a lion. The lion, we know, is a metaphor for the part of you that fights against your current beliefs and tries to refute them. It now manifests itself as an actual lion.
"The sign cometh," said Zarathustra, and a change came over his heart. And in truth, when it turned clear before him, there lay a yellow, powerful animal at his feet, resting its head on his knee, unwilling to leave him out of love, and doing like a dog which again findeth its old master. The doves, however, were no less eager with their love than the lion, and whenever a dove whisked over its nose, the lion shook its head and wondered and laughed. When all this went on, Zarathustra spake only a word, "My children are nigh, my children." Then he became quite mute.
Zarathustra sees this as a sign that the lion stage of humanity has finally arrived, and there will be humans who are more like lions, more like him. When he thinks of those new humans, his children, as he calls them, the love that has been awakened in him finds something to love, and he is overcome by the emotion.
His heart, however, was loosed, and from his eyes there dropped down tears and fell upon his hands. And he took no further notice of anything, but sat there motionless, without repelling the animals further. Then flew the doves to and fro, and perched on his shoulder, and caressed his white hair, and did not tire of their tenderness and joyousness. The strong lion, however, licked always the tears that fell on Zarathustra's hands, and roared and growled shyly. Thus did these animals do.
This is another self-surpassing. He is transformed into a loving person. And like every self-surpassing, it generates ecstasy and joy that last for some time. Zarathustra is in the heart of happiness, and remains there for a while.
All this went on for a long time, or a short time, for properly speaking there is no time on earth for such things. Meanwhile, however, the higher men had awakened in Zarathustra's cave, and marshalled themselves for a procession to go to meet Zarathustra, and give him their morning greeting, for they had found, when they awakened, that he no longer tarried with them. When, however, they reached the door of the cave, and the noise of their steps had preceded them, the lion started violently. It turned away all at once from Zarathustra, and roaring wildly sprang towards the cave. The higher men, however, when they heard the lion roaring, cried all aloud as with one voice, fled back, and vanished in an instant.
The higher men, meanwhile, wake up and want to greet their savior, but he has no time for them anymore. A self-surpassing has been achieved, into a stronger stage, and this stage, personified by the lion, rejects these people as insufficient. They, in turn, prove that they are indeed insufficient, as they don't have the courage to be in the presence of the lion. And so they scurry back into the cave, into Zarathustra's yesterday.
Zarathustra himself, however, stunned and strange, rose from his seat, looked around him, stood there astonished, inquired of his heart, bethought himself, and remained alone. "What did I hear?" said he at last, slowly. "What happened unto me just now?" But soon there came to him his recollection, and he took it in at a glance, all that had taken place between yesterday and today. "Here is indeed the stone," said he, and stroked his beard. "On it sat I yestermorn, and here came the soothsayer unto me. And here heard I first the cry, which I heard just now, the great cry of distress.
This wakes Zarathustra up from his happy state, and he begins to reflect. He wants to understand what happened to him that brought about this transformation. He remembers his meeting with the soothsayer yesterday, which sparked this whole chain of events.
O ye higher men, your distress was it that the old soothsayer foretold to me yestermorn? Unto your distress did he want to seduce and tempt me. O Zarathustra, said he to me, I come to seduce thee to thy last sin. To my last sin? Cried Zarathustra, and laughed angrily at his own words. What hath been reserved for me as my last sin?
He remembers that the soothsayer wanted to use the distress of the higher men to get him to despair, and remembers also that he foretold that he is about to commit his last sin. He even told him what it is going to be, but Zarathustra, at the time, was too distracted to pay attention. Now he tries to retrace his steps and figure out what sin the soothsayer was alluding to.
And once more Zarathustra became absorbed in himself, and sat down again on the big stone and meditated. Suddenly he sprang up. Fellow suffering with the higher men, he cried out, and his countenance changed into brass. Well, that hath had its time.
He finally figures out what it is, and is extremely angry with himself. He allowed himself to do the thing he warned against the most. Let pity and compassion guide his actions. In reaction, his countenance turns to brass, like a statue, as if he beats back these weakening emotions. But he immediately calms down. He realizes it actually had a good effect on him, made him able to love his children. But now it did its thing, and he should leave these feelings behind.
My suffering and my fellow suffering, what matter about them? Do I then strive after happiness? I strive after my work. Well, the lion hath come, my children are nigh. Zarathustra hath grown ripe, mine hour hath come. This is my morning, my day beginneth. Arise now, arise thou great noontide.
The great noontide, he believes, is finally here, the time when humanity is ready to change course and start working towards the Superman. He should not be worried about eliminating suffering or striving for happiness. The only thing that should interest him is working to become stronger in spirit. Happiness will come as a byproduct, and his work will show the way to others, and eventually make humanity happier as well.
Thus spake Zarathustra, and left his cave, glowing and strong, like a morning sun coming out of gloomy mountains.
And this is how it ends. If the great noontide is here, it means that some humans are finally ready for him, ready to understand his message, and he can go back down the mountain. So he leaves his cave behind, with the higher men of yesterday, and goes out to help create the men of tomorrow. The fourth part, however, leaves some lingering questions. It focused on how one should deal with other people, but something is lacking in Zarathustra's ethics. He allowed love into his ethics, but this love is only for those who are like him. Earlier, he also taught of another kind of love, the love for your enemies. This love is not emotional, but a love for the fact that those enemies exist to challenge you, so it prevents you from harming them. What about the rest, though? The answer seems to be that we should ignore them, present ourselves as stronger models that they should aspire to, and let them figure out for themselves how to get there. But what if they are bound by outside forces that prevent them from getting there? What if someone is held in chains, and you have the power to liberate them? Shouldn't you help them? What would drive you to help them, if you banned compassion from your ethics? And if you don't help them, if you turn a blind eye to suffering that you can actually do something about, wouldn't that harden your heart to the point where you would not be able to love? When I started analyzing this part, I was hoping to get some answers to these questions. But those are questions that Nietzsche never dealt with. Still, a great and inspiring journey, and I hope I helped you experience it. Zarathustra spake no more, so here is where this project ends.